Hello folks, it's Ian Hurd bringing you a word of encouragement again. When John wrote his epistle, he spoke of Jesus and he described him this way: "This is the true God." Now that's a most interesting phrase, that Jesus is the true God. But then he said, "and eternal life." This is the true God and eternal life. And Jesus brought into this time realm a different kind of life by which he taught us to live, or is teaching us to live. He demonstrated among us that the time realm need not tyrannize. Frequently it does, as everyone listening will know. There are constraints placed on us. There are interruptions. They're one of the stresses, the greatest stresses of life. But Jesus was showing us how to live in the midst or within this time realm, allowing another realm to cause all things to work together for good. And when Paul wrote those words about those who love him having all things work together for good, he used an interesting Greek word from which we derive our word synergize. So effectively what he said was, and we know that God is synergizing all things for our good. Now, there's a number of demonstrations in Jesus' life of this principle at work. Here's one. It's in Luke chapter 8. And an important official comes to Jesus. His 12-year-old daughter is at death's door. He's desperate. His name is Jairus. He is desperate for Jesus to come and heal his daughter. And so he sets out to go to Jairus' house. And on the way, he is interrupted. There's almost what seems to be a cruel interruption. Here's a woman stigmatized with her illness, who comes up behind him. She was not allowed into the temple. She was ceremonially unclean, not permitted to touch anyone. She comes up behind Jesus with hope and a measure of faith in her heart, and she touches to the very hem of his garment in faith. And Jesus stops in his tracks. And I want you to think about how Jairus feels now. Jesus stops and begins to interact with the woman. "Who touched me?" he says as he turns around. And here is this poor woman who has to admit that it was her. And so there's a sickening delay for Jairus while Jesus deals with this dear woman. And during that delay, the message comes from Jairus' house: "It's too late. Your daughter has died." That's the message from the time realm, what we would call reality. But Jesus speaks to Jairus and he says, "Don't be afraid, Jairus, only believe." Now the words of the messengers, Jairus' household messengers, came from the time realm. And when Jesus gets to Jairus' house, in fact before that, he speaks to Jairus from a different realm. He speaks from the eternal realm. He speaks from a different experience, a different dynamic, because he understands that all things are being synergized together for good by his Father. He's on an errand for his Father. Now this is beyond understanding. It means that the delay caused by the woman was of no consequence to the purpose of God. So when Jesus arrives at Jairus' house, he then is confronted with ridicule, because he says that the girl is not dead, or that she will come to life, and he's ridiculed. So he then separates out those who say his word is ridiculous. And when he's spoken his word of assurance to us, it may be to others ridiculous. What God speaks may, to me, what God speaks to you may to others actually sound ridiculous. But God speaks out of a different realm. He speaks from his eternal realm. He speaks from the Father's economy. Time is not the governing factor. Time is not the tyrant. He is working all things together for good. And believers access life of the eternal kind, a different kind. We can do it here and now. We can access life of the eternal kind in the here and now, as Jesus showed us. We're in touch with its reality. And the mystery is that he is synergizing all things for the good of those who love him. If you're one of those who is in him, who loves him, next time your program is interrupted, and I'm not saying that I'm good at this, I'm learning this. Next time my plan, next time your plans for the day, for the week, are apparently cruelly interrupted, be in touch with the eternal realm before knee-jerking from the time realm. Father, will you help us to be in that realm with you, the realm where eternal life is touching our time realm, and be confident that despite the constraints of time, you are for us, as you promised, causing all things to synergize, work together for good, good as you define it. Amen.